trying to look. A lot of chiming.
Yeah.
Do you have to do something to get Colette to be?
Oh, yeah, I
like
bet we
a-
will.
an
When she wants
assistant or
to,
something?
yeah, when Colette logs in. Have you ever like gone on the backside of Zoom?
Not really.
Okay, well, I'll just put it over by me.
Okay.
I'll put it in Julie's spot,
Okay.
and then when she gets here, we should just set it in Colette's spot.
That would be funny.
Yeah.
Oh, she's there.
Oh, Colette's there. Okay. Okay. I'll just set it. That'll be boring. So let's see. So if Colette wants to speak,
Mm-hmm.
we can just
There.
unmute her. Yeah. Maybe sit over there just so you can get a little more of the.
Do I need to turn it like this?
Split up. Maybe 4, get back to mass indoors, 4 tickets, all virtual, no going to games over there.
Really? There was a
Just saw it today.
superintendent Zoom and they were asking what was our policy and like somebody has COVID, what are the requirements? Sarah, just to find out, she's following Jefferson County, but they're in stories, so sorry.
I think it's just that, I mean, what I saw was straight from Collins Maxwell, the people, each player, remember that, gets 4 tickets or 5.
Yeah.
I know, but I feel like I should apologize every time.
How's your knee? Oh, yeah.
It's time. When Wendy's ready, you just click on this and then just hit
Share
or slideshow.
slideshow. Do you want that? Oh, yeah. I mean, otherwise it's just kind of tricky.
Yeah, sorry.
No, that's fine. 6 o'clock, we'll call the meeting to order. Do we have any additions or corrections to the agenda for tonight's meeting?
I did shuffle things around just a bit, just because Wendy as soon as we're finished, or as soon as she's finished with her part, she's gonna take off. She has another commitment. So I just put her things right. That's
We have a motion to approve the agenda.
So
We have a second. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Agenda's approved. Move into the consent items. Anybody have any questions or comments on those?
Somebody's trying to get into the board meeting.
Okay.
It should be unlocked. And it says the door's locked.
That is weird. It should be unlocked at this time.
Thanks for listening.
Any questions on the consent items?
So that question that Colette had about. I didn't get an opportunity to read a lot today, but was Pam was looking into that.
Yeah, and she forwarded like a second
Oh,
email. With
okay,
kind of a
I'm
little bit of
sorry, I
explanation.
missed that.
No, that's okay. It was after I sent you guys that saying we'll check into it more. It was it's past the warranty,
Oh,
and so
Okay.
thankfully Bill found out what the problem was, but it was past the warranty for them to come fix it for free, and so that's where the charge was. But it's
But
running
it looked
now.
like it wasn't done right. to
It wasn't,
begin with,
well,
right?
yeah, Pam can give us a little more detail, but I'm not sure if it was a new, like, part of the new edition, or something that was, well, maybe just keep it profit open. Or,
You sent it out, 7 or something?
I don't know.
It was fine.
I went through just.
maybe it does lock at 6, but that's not, because there's always people coming in and out all the time.
Yeah.
I don't know why it's. But, anyway, Pam's checking into it, but
Okay.
it's not covered by warranty.
Okay.
And there's kind of in the email I forwarded, had kind of for conversation back and forth.
Okay,
with
I'll
the-
read that. I apologize. I didn't.
No, that's okay. I just sent it like right before I left. Okay.
Any other questions? Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve the consent items? We have a motion, we have a second.
Second.
A motion, a second, all in favor, aye. Same sign. Consent items are approved. Move down to correspondence.
People on Zoom are asking for you to speak up.
Okay,
The correspondence, so we'd like to thank Paul and Chris Schmidt and the Bayer Fund America Farmers Growing Communities. Paul and Chris, who are Baxter community members and Baxter School District parents, were awarded a grant from Bayer Fund for $5,000 and allocated it to further our district's STEM program. That's really generous donation. And we also like to thank Jean and Murray Nelson Foundation for a very generous contribution of $350 to benefit students in the graphic arts classes. So, thank you, those people.
okay, we'll move into public forum. And I just wanted to say that next meeting, we're going to start a little different. We'll still have public forum here for if it's anything that's not on the agenda. But if we have an agenda item, we'll go and we're going to have to sign in that Julie will have. So the person can sign in if there's an agenda item, what they'd like to speak to. So when we get to that point in the agenda, we'll have either myself or Mike or whatever, we'll introduce that subject. And then we'll ask the public if they want to speak to it before the board discusses it.
Oh.
So I think it'd make kind of flow a little better if it's an agenda item. So if somebody wants to speak on a subject that's not on the agenda, we'll still have the public forum
Okay.
at the point we do now. So, but that'll begin next meeting. So anyway, we'll open up the public forum if anybody would like to speak. Just raise your hand. Okay, Sue?
Hey, John, usually you just call on me first, so I was just sitting here waiting. Maybe you couldn't see me behind Jason.
I'm gonna turn this around.
I've got just a little bit of background as a reminder before I get into what I wanted to speak about here. This fall, some of the information that I provided for you was from the U.S. News report on schools in the various states. And while I will like to brag that it was at the top of states in terms of percentage of students graduating, what they don't talk about were a couple of things I pointed out in that article and then provided the spreadsheets to actually show you. One of those was that the NAEP assessments, which use national standards, had Iowa down in the bottom half of the country in terms of all the state rankings. And it put Iowa down at 40th place in terms of student skill sets at graduation. And the reason for that, of course, has to do with concepts and standards. I'll get to that in a second. But the standards become important because the only school I presently teach for now is the University of Maryland. And it's one of the ones that has a contract with the Department of Defense. And it was the military and your big businesses that lobbied Congress for No Child Left Behind 20 years ago, because they weren't getting enough applicants for jobs, people with thinking and problem solving skills sufficiently high enough, which is why No Child Left Behind set standards, national standards, but states have the option of what they're going to do with those. And the reason I'm mentioning that is because in 2015, when we went from No Child Left Behind to ESSA to give states more time if they were struggling to try to get up to the national standards, that's when the military began demanding of us that we meet international standards, which are even higher. We've now done that. In fact, we just got an email a week or two ago that, I mean, all of our degree programs, everything in there has been completely redone in the last 7 years. And now we're tweaking and trying to improve how we handle student support systems for this, based on what they're coming from as their undergraduate educational background things here. So somewhere down the road, the standards are going to get raised from the national standards Iowa already is meeting up to higher. So back to what I emailed you for the December meeting that we didn't have. Our family looking for additional support for students because we already know that Iowa educators don't use all of the concepts from the national math curriculum, which is the only national one that we use in the state, and the rest we got from other sources, and they don't have all of the concepts. Two of the analogies I've used for the concepts, one would be like building blocks, so you don't have big gaps with the concepts being the building blocks. Another one would be exercises to exercise the brain. That's how you, like you would to exercise if you played sports or something, to build up what you need in order to perform. And that's what the concepts do. That's the reason the national standards were selected with certain concepts in there. Our family went looking. We just started with Amazon. Because we just started there because you find things on there and then you can go directly to the companies involved and check out to see what they have and what might be meeting national standards, have good instructional videos and worksheets and assessments and everything. And just as one example that I provided you for the December meeting that we wouldn't have, happened to be Argo Prep, and I provided you 2 links so you could check them out. One of them had to do with training instructors to give them new ideas of how to present the concepts to students that might be more effective than what they're presently doing, in addition to all of the concepts for the national standards. The reason I sent a follow-up this time is because we learned over the Christmas break, because we did purchase the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade from them. And just during the fall, we reviewed the 6th and the 7th grade, so we managed to fill in all of the math concepts that aren't being covered in Iowa, ready to go on now with the 8th grade. But we got an email saying they're going to start selling these at Costco stores. So the public is going to have more access to programs that actually are providing all of the concepts that Iowa's curriculum is not providing for students. They're getting instructional support to effectively teach those concepts in addition to the worksheets and assessments. There are other companies that do this. I was just providing you with the one. And the one I sent today is one that we've received within the last week or two, that if you click on it, shows you, if you scroll down to the bottom, that they are providing this for all disciplines, K through 8 initially here, so that you have the foundation of all the national concepts, as well as examples of how to effectively teach them and the worksheets that are involved. So as you get more families of students accessing this is, they may still want to come to the school for the sports and the band and everything, but you're going to have to take a look, I believe, at your business plan to see if you have a better way. Because I said 20 years ago, none of you were here for that, but when the change was made, that you needed something like this to effectively train the teachers who were educated and trained, depending on their ages, but most likely only in memorization, that they didn't really have the concept. I did, I'm old, I admit it, so I still had an education in concepts that was being changed right behind me within a grade or two as I went through K-12 to memorization. I was one of the lucky ones. But I thought that would show effective teaching methods in addition to effective materials and working more one-on-one with students. You've got a whole different way you could be approaching education to be effective and provide additional support for the students. And I wanted to just provide you with this, since it's being made more and more accessible to families of students, that give you time to think and maybe do some planning about how best to help the students more effectively. So thank you for the time.
Thank you. Anybody else for public forum?
I have a question, just based on the conversation that I walked in on when I came in. I'm curious if this board or administration has any intention of changing the back to school plan that was presented last summer. I walked in on some asked questions and comments about what other school districts are doing and the return to learn plan, and I'm wondering if this board is considering adjusting that in any way. And John, to your other comment about speaking at a time appropriate to a topic, I know Michaelin had said that she would give me the opportunity for the curriculum discussion in this meeting that was supposed to happen in December, right before that. So I would like to reserve the rest of my time for that.
Okay.
We're just following Jasper County's.
Can you speak up?
Yeah, you bet. So Sarah just said, when she speaks with families, they're given the option of isolation for 5 days and returning with a mask for 5 days. And if they don't want to or are unwilling to wear a mask, then they stay home for 10 days. That's Jasper County's recommendations. Right. So that we're just
Sarah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sarah is our school nurse. Sarah teaching.
Okay.
So yeah. So, but as far as changing our return to learn plan, we haven't talked about that at all.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
I was just curious based on the
Yeah.
conversation.
I understand.
Anybody else for public forum?
I don't have anything.
Okay, we'll move on, and Christy will let you talk when you.
Thank you very much.
You bet. We'll move into our business items. And the first item is the SIAC, the School Improvement Advisory Committee. Michael, you want to speak to that, please?
Yeah, so we have a SIAC School Improvement Advisory Committee, and we meet a couple times a year. We met earlier this fall and kind of followed up with some work we'd started last spring. And so a lot of this vision and mission work that Wendy's going to present to you was started in the SIAC committee. And so last, gosh, I can't remember the date, but it's like November maybe, we met and we presented the SIAC committee with the work that the kind of the final product before we wanted to give it to them, to give them get some feedback from them before we brought it to the board. And so we brought them, you know, the vision and mission and core values work that we had done with the district leadership team and the staff. And then they gave us more feedback. And so we were able to take that back and tweak it even more. So we really feel like we had some really good community buy-in on this, with this product that we're bringing to you. And so we've got another meeting set up. We'll do it in the spring. And what we'll do then is we'll kind of look at setting some goals for the next year. So I've got the list of people on here that are part of it. And Colette brought to my attention a really great point that we had forgotten. We need to have some kids on here, and I think it's just our kids that were on there graduated, and then we just forgot to add new kids on there. So the people who are currently on it are Jason Anker, Rob Luther, Donna Akins, Jen Andrade, Lori Gowdy, Aaron Engel, Betsy Damon, Kim Tickey, Michael Clapper, Wyatt 80, Travis D, Nancy Foreman, Melissa Brummel, Joe McMiniman, Wendy Anderson, Elizabeth Aarons, and she's from the AEA, and Katie Kibbe and Stacy McMiniman. So you guys just need to approve our committee, and then I'll send you the amendment, or we can amend it at the next meeting with whichever
Usually have
kids.
like 3 students. don't we?
Yeah. I think, and they aren't always able to make it, but it's nice if we have 3. We actually had a couple of kids that were there that weren't really on the committee. They were with, they were like finished up wrestling practice and they're waiting for their parents. So they were kind of default on the committee, but not really. So they didn't have a formal invitation. So,
Is it usually upperclassmen or?
yeah, and I don't know why we couldn't have some maybe upper elementary, even like a 5th or 6th grade kid. I think it's mostly been high schoolers, but I don't see, you know, like if like a responsible upper elementary kid wanted to be a part of it, they could probably give us some interesting feedback on things, their take on things. So if you have anybody you're thinking of, just send me an email.
Okay.
Otherwise, I'll probably just have Jason or Rob grab a couple kids and talk to their parents. And so that I'll let you guys approve that list, and then that'll lead right into our curriculum work that Wendy's gonna talk about with us. But we really were so thankful for the SIAC committee and all the work that they did, because they really, really got the ball rolling last spring. And so we wanted to just make sure that we honored the work that they did. And so, and we thought, we brought them our stuff, we thought it was really good. And then they gave us a ton of really good feedback. So we really did tweak it. So it's very much an organic community effort. It's not just, you know, me and Jason and Rob and Wendy sitting around citing this. It was definitely a team effort from teachers, you know, parents, community members. It was, so we're really proud of it. So we hope you guys like it.
Does the board have any questions on the committee as presented? We have a motion to approve the SIAC committee as presented.
So
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, aye. Opposed, same sign. SIAC committee is approved as presented. And we'll look forward to having several students to approve the next meeting. Okay, the next item. Is that the SIAC report then?
I kind of just
Or-
gave it
okay.
orally.
So then we'll move on to the curriculum and the vision and mission update.
Just for something like-
Did you want to?
I guess I don't know, to me, it seems like it'd work better if we introduce the subject and that, and then ask for public input after it's kind of presented, but whatever you're comfortable with is fine.
Guiding.
Probably move over there. so- Oh, it's not touch screen. Kim, it's not touch screen.
You could say it 3 more times. I'll still get to touch the screen.
I can do that. They're showing that on Zoom so they can see.
That we can. Do you know how to do that, Wendy?
I don't.
Isn't Zoom, you can for sure, just go to Zoom and then
Okay,
like
Like
escape out of that,
escape out of
escape out of
here.
that and just share screen.
which one's escape though on this keyboard?
I'm not used to these either.
This is fancy without. So then, oh, share screen. I would share your whole desktop. Otherwise it acts wonky.
Okay.
Sometimes and then won't see it.
Just the top, your top left image there.
Oh,
Share
this.
that, Yep.
There you go.
And then share, and then you can,
Okay, and then now, can we?
yeah, once you go to that, hit present, it should, they'll be seeing it. so.
Okay.
All right, there you go, Wendy. It's all you. Okay, so Michael kind of alluded to this, but the steps in the process of developing these. First, last spring, the SIAC met to give recommendations in terms of the values of the community and what they thought was important. And then over the summer and this fall, the district leadership team met to create the mission and vision and commitments based on that input and previous work that had been done with commitments. Then around November and December, the leadership team presented those statements to the staff first and got their feedback, and then presented them to SIAC for feedback and revisions as well. And so now the new mission, vision, and commitments are presented to the board for your approval. That's kind of where we are at this moment. So again, just kind of reviewing that we use this chart to kind of guide us in terms of what each of those areas would be. So I'll just let you kind of maybe look at that for just a moment.
So I think you can minimize those
Yep.
people
Just
right there,
click
on the
that
left side, the little dash mark there. There you go.
So that values piece is really developed into, from the community, we developed commitments in our next step. And I'll show you that in a slide or so, that we'll be making goals for next year based on our data. It's not letting me advance now. Yeah. Okay, here we go. So this is the mission statement that was created, empowering all learners to acquire the skills for personal success in an ever-changing world. So again, this tells us why we exist. Our vision statement is a little bit longer because this is what we want to become. So in the first part, we want to continue to be a nurturing community where we unite to focus on growth, and that collaboration between staff, parents, and community stakeholders will support the mission through these bullet points. Culture of respect, participation, safety, and trust for all through a foundation of strong relationships. Dedication to achievement for all learners through data-driven decision-making. Commitment to personal excellence and the excellence of our organization, and unwavering focus on continuous improvement. So again, this is what kind of guides us. We will become these things. And then through these commitments, we'll first look at providing a guaranteed and viable curriculum, using evidence-based practices and protocols for all tiers of the multi-tiered system of support in our school. We'll implement effective core instruction so that at least 80% of our students attain proficiency without additional interventions. And again, that's a minimum of 80% without additional help.
We will expect students to achieve academic, behavior, and social emotional standards by implementing a multi-tiered system of supports. We will engage in professional learning to increase our instructional capacity and to impact student learning. And then finally, the leader in each of us will support the district's mission, vision, and commitments by holding ourselves and others accountable. So next steps in this process, once we've developed these, if they're approved, we will use that then to identify goals and create a district action plan for next year. And then, of course, we'll meet to give them feedback on the goals that we've potentially come up with in the SIAC committee. Again, if from that feedback, we will collect data starting next year. We already have some, but we're going to continue to collect that and evaluate the progress toward our goals. And then we will present regular updates on those goals to the board and the community, and that will guide our professional development for our teachers as well. Questions?
Can you go back?
Sure.
to the couple slides where you have the bullet points?
Sure. These or the,
Yeah.
Okay.
That's it. Thanks. So when you say we will use evidence-based practices and protocols for all tiers, can you explain that a little bit more?
sure. So core instruction is what all students get. So that's the first tier. It's universal, everyone gets it. The second tier is added on top of that if there are students that struggle with that core instruction, they need some additional intervention of some kind to help them. So they might have had skills missing for whatever reason. So that's the second tier, targeted instruction to help them with that. And then sometimes students also need to have the third tier, which is intensifying that targeted instruction because it's still not working for them. We also would, at those tiers, would provide not just intervention, but extensions for students as well that have already achieved that the standard and they need additional extension for their learning. So they would be provided those services as well. So the tiers are meant to make sure that we target needs for students, not just passing them on like you didn't get the core instruction, so, or you've already got it. So, but we provide the needs for those students as well. So those three tiers are what they call to make sure that we're addressing 100% of our student needs.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
And when you say at least 80% will attain proficiency, so in other words, you're hoping to limit or decrease the amount of IEPs, or is that
Yes.
what
So
you mean by
right.
that, or?
So definitely students would have to go through this process if they would be considered for specially designed instruction. So that means that we have data to prove we've done this and this and this. We've intensified those interventions. They still didn't work. We've done all that we can. We have the data to show that that this type of instruction isn't working for that student. So then they would be considered for IEP or specially designed instruction.
But typically they say about 80% of your kids will get it at that universal tier level.
Okay.
And then the targeted is usually about 15% of the other kids need just a little bit more. And then you're going to talk about the top 5% of the triangle is the tier 3. And that's when you really, really intensify. That's a lot of times where your special ed kids would fall. So that's kind of just a basic, they kind of talk about the triangle, and that's the kind of the numbers they typically talk about, 80, 15, 5.
Okay. And in that 5, you're also talking about gifted and talented. too.
Right, right.
Okay.
Yep.
She's unmuted, it looks like, maybe. On the anyway.
Could you just go back one more slide?
This one?
Yeah. I'm on that last bullet. I don't know, maybe this is being redundant, but I was just thinking maybe unwavering focus on continuous improvement and growth on that part.
Okay.
I mean, it's just a suggestion. I don't know, maybe
Sure.
it's,
repeat what she said.
She said on the last bullet point,
Yeah,
maybe add onto their unwavering focus on continuous improvement and growth.
oh, okay.
Any others? Questions or comments?
Send that on the presentation on to us. So we can-
Yeah, we can link it.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. Once we get like the final thumbs up, we can get it like put on the website, we can, print new posters. Splash with it, just to like, for one, because I love it, too, just to make sure everybody knows like that their work wasn't for nothing. And we don't want it just to be a poster. I mean, we've talked a lot about the collective commitments that, we can use those to like, if one of us is not doing what we're supposed to be doing, like, well, we agree that we will hold each other accountable and hold ourselves accountable. It was just all the things, we just love it.
Is there a way, I don't know, can you break that down to like show elementary kids, like what the vision and focus is and make it understandable for them? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because it's like, it's student too, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
But, obviously they're not gonna have a hard time understanding.
Right. It's a great idea.
So what's your timeline for board approval, like next meeting, is that what you're looking at?
Oh, we were thinking tonight, but if you want more time to look at it,
I guess I'd like to.
yeah, we can send it to you and then we can bring it back next month for like your final approval. But we can share it and then you'll have time to really think through it more and ask questions. And you can always email questions to me or Wendy or, like Colette's comment. We can add that.
Incorporate that.
Yeah.
And I like Debbie's comment about trying to make it
Yeah, I think
understandable
it's
for
kid-friendly
the
and
younger
listen.
kids too.
Yeah.
Somehow.
Can I just
think-
add 2 cents?
Yeah.
Can we go back to collective commitments?
You bet.
Sorry. This is just Jason Aker talking, so that we can have conversation. However, I think mission vision, right, is definitely what we want to stand up to the world and say, this is right, this is our mission, and this is what we aspire to be and what we hope to be through our vision. The commitment part is really a professional commitment to the staff and to the employees that in order to achieve this mission and this vision, we collectively commit to do these things. These aren't necessarily commitments that students are making, right? I mean, you know what I'm saying? So like, I don't know, I'm just a little bit, I don't know that our students, I mean, yeah, these particular aspects of it, I wouldn't reword these into a elementary. That's just me personally. I'm just giving my 2 cents. But the
understand what
mission
you're
and vision
saying.
for sure. I mean, I
Yeah,
think-
I'm talking more about that than this. I agree with you. Like the part where, sorry, you're gonna have to go ahead again.
the vision.
To,
Yeah. Like, yeah, that part. Make that understandable for little ones.
I don't think it would be too difficult to say even the commitments that we would say to kids. When you're not here at school on Mondays, we are learning, just like you are,
Yes,
and we're learning how to be better teachers. So we could say something like that. But I agree that it's without it might be hard to explain the tiers.
There were
or-
just even parts like when you asked about tiers, right? When we met at the SIAC, there's some language in the collective commitments that is education speak, right? That
Yeah,
even
even the
some community
community
members like,
members.
I have no idea what you're even talking about there. That does, so.
That could go for adults.
For sure.
Yeah, because you think a lot about, staff, agreeing to these commitments, but yeah, you gotta think there needs to be commitments for students too. Like you say, some of that's probably
Oh, yeah.
what they need to, just.
Personal
like this-
excellence,
yeah,
right?
here,
Yeah.
I mean, these
Yeah.
really, need more folks or students, so, you know, we need your help also. So,
Yeah, because we've talked a lot, you know, like this year, tons of stuff about respect, safety, responsibility, right? Participate. Those are the things we're talking to kids down the elementary all the time about. So this language or language slightly like this is something that would fall right in line with what they know they're striving for.
The social contracts is that at the upper levels or is it, it's
K-
all,
K-12.
yeah,
K-12.
okay. So I think that kind of ties into
For
with
sure,
some of this
for sure.
as well.
How often does the SIAC meet?
We've been doing it twice a year,
Okay.
like once in the fall and once in the spring.
Any other questions? So like within a couple of weeks, would that give you enough time to kind of maybe add to it or?
Oh,
or that
absolutely.
And get us. out to the
Absolutely.
board, so we'll have
Yeah,
A couple of weeks before the next meeting.
right. I think,
Just link the current, this one, into the mid, or to your notes, your board notes, so you'll be able to at least look at that.
Oh,
so
thank you.
Okay.
And then, you know, Wendy and Jason, Rob and I can trying to figure out kid language.
yeah, well, we could even do that in our leadership team. Our next meeting is the 7th of February. We could,
Yeah. Yes, that.
Add that to that.
The DLT. The DLT is the district leadership team. There's all these acronyms, but that's administrators and teachers, and Wendy, ADA.
And then as far as curriculum
Yep.
is,
that's the next piece.
all right.
Okay, so these are some documents that are potential. They are not in place yet. These are just suggestions that you could use. So you can, we're just going to examine some documents today. So the first thing is just a document that I created. So it's an inventory of the required readings that teachers have. So this would allow us, so just as a teacher in the grade on the left, if we have texts that are required for students to read, what are those? And then if it might be that this has some type of theme or topic or other material that might be objectionable or of any way that they can maybe list that, what that might possibly be. So if there's some swear words in it, that they would list that there, this might be something that people object to. So it helps, this kind of document would help us all be aware of the readings that teachers are requiring for students in their classes, especially as we have new teachers come in. So they might be wanting to use things and just to have that everybody's on the same page and aware of what they are using. So again, there's a little star there that says at the bottom, it's a teacher's responsibility to inform parents of required reading. So teachers should be doing that at the beginning of the year with a syllabus or some kind, or have that on a web page or something so that parents are fully aware of what the content is that will be addressed in that class. And then be also prepared to offer alternative materials if so requested by the parent.
So if a parent in the beginning of the year sees a book that they don't want their child to read, they have to fill this form out.
No, this would be internal
That's
for,
This- oh, okay.
yes.
Oh,
yes,
even
I'm going to show you in just a
Okay,
moment a
thanks.
form that they can use for external. So, but just for us internally, so that we all know what the materials are being used at each content level, each grade level, that we're aware of that.
So it'd be K through 12.
Probably, there are probably some subject areas that wouldn't be on here, like I'm thinking math or PE or ag or business, probably doesn't have a lot to put on there that would be required reading. That's because it's very more factual information, I guess. So, but yeah, I would say definitely our ELA science, social studies, so forth. So again, this is an option. There might be a better way to keep track of those. Could be an Excel document but this is just an option of one way to get everybody on the same page. I need my glasses. Here we go. The second is a objection to instructional material. I do have a link, but I'm just going to pass these around so that you can see those a little bit better up close. Again, this is something that comes from the Iowa Association of School Boards. So it's a state document. That's why you see this is very similar to a lot of other school districts around here. So this is what Colfax-Mingo uses, Bondurant, Johnston. So it's just, again, something that is has been recommended by the IASB. So I don't know, it's a lot of material here, but it just outlines a process. If there is an objection to materials, the first step is that the staff member listens to the concerns of the person with the complaint and tries to solve the situation informally by explaining the materials, listening, what's the context, the purpose, and so forth. And if that can't be resolved, then the student involved in the challenge will be provided alternative materials if the parent so requests. If that is not satisfactory, then what they can do is submit a form to the building principal. And that's what you were asking about. Is this something for the parents to fill out? So again, this is that from the same organization. It's underlined here is a link that you can click on. And so again, I'm just going to pass around a copy of what that would look like. Basically, the person just states what is it that you're objecting to? What's the material? What brought it to your attention, and what part of it do you object to? And the backside, again, just asking questions in your opinion. What's harmful about it? Do you perceive any instructional value to it? Did you review the entire item? Should opinions of other experts in the field be considered? And if you wanted to replace this item, what would you, what in your opinion would you replace it with? Asked if they want to make an oral presentation to the review committee. So once they would turn this in to the principal, step 4 would be that their principal would form a committee, and the committee within 10 days of looking over this has to come to a decision. And those committee members that they say on there would include another principal, teacher librarian, 2 teachers, 2 community residents, 2 secondary students. I would facilitate the curriculum, the committee, sorry. And the person lodging the complaints can be a presenter to the committee, but not a member of that committee. So again, it just outlines like if that the review committee will make a recommendation. If that's not acceptable to the person who complained, they can make an appeal. Then that's when the superintendent can become involved, the board can become involved. And if it's still not resolved, then that person can eventually appeal to the Iowa Department of Education. Again, these 2 documents are optional to use, but they certainly could be modified in some way to serve the needs of our district.
And our current board policy just says that a procedure will be developed. And so looking around, see what other people have used, we just brought this procedure that everyone, or not everyone else, but several other places are using. So we don't have to approve, I mean, you can approve this, give us your blessing, but we've already got a board policy in place that says the administration will develop procedures. And so that's what these are.
This makes it very clear. what the
Yeah.
steps are,
Yeah.
for a parent.
And we can get these put onto our website so that it's easily accessible if someone wants to, especially with the complaints. I mean, you just click on it, it takes you right to the form. It's really easy.
So you want to add in these procedures to the current policy?
I don't know if we could. Otherwise, it already is addressed that we will develop procedures. Because then if we have to tweak something, it's gonna have to bring it back from board approval.
Christie, would you like to
John.
speak then?
I appreciate seeing this, number one, because this has been a continued conversation since August of this year, raising concerns about reading material, literature that's been in high school classes. Corey and John, I appreciate you taking the time since November, having a correspondence with me. Mr. Luther, Dr. Clapper, and Wendy, we all had really good conversations. One concern that I have about this is retroactively looking at all of the email strings that were received this fall and taking a deep dive into all of those books, because those should be investigated and remedied. Second, just because you're offering it and offering it out for certain students or certain parents, in my opinion, doesn't mean that it's appropriate for public education. So just because one parent opts out, they're going to have their student exposed to these ideologies, these languages, and some of the books, I will say, are appalling. If I read them or changed a bit of language, your faces would go white, I imagine, because I don't think you would want your children reading those books. It's hard enough as a 40-some-year-old adult to read these books. So I challenge you to really think deeply about whether these types of literature belong in our school at Baxter at all, period, and not just an opt-out scenario where parents have to dig in. You're depending on high school students to report something to their parents. And as a high school student, I would have just done the work. I wouldn't have gone to my parent and been like, hey, you wouldn't believe what I'm having to read today. I mean, that's a hard thing for high school students. I don't know how many high school students actually go home and tell their parents what they're reading at school, or just get the work done because they want the good grade. They don't want to stick out. So they just go along to get along. And we're still teaching these ideologies. So I would really challenge whether they belong in our school district at all. And the last thing I'll say is I'm curious if anyone watched the governor's State of the State address last week. She specifically addressed these concerns about book literature, mandate, the potential that there was going to be guidance from our government in the state of Iowa to have all books recorded so that all community members, parents, students know what is being taught in our schools. So I wouldn't think that this should be a select few that should see this list and the concerns about these books. I think it should be a public document. And I think Baxter has an opportunity to be on the leading edge to be able to say, you know what, we're going to make sure that we're shoring up our books and getting rid of the trash that's being taught in our classrooms, because it is appalling. And I really hope that you do consider adopting policies and retroactively looking at all of the books that have been brought to your attention throughout this fall and in prior years and doing something about it.
What trash books are you talking about? Do you have a couple titles that you're talking about or examples?
The true, I'm gonna probably get the title slightly wrong.
That's okay.
The true story of a Native American,
Okay.
the diary of a Native American
Yeah,
Indian or something like that.
Yeah.
Quotes in that book, if I said them, I'm sure I would get written up from student conduct. If the language was changed slightly, it is so sexual and degrading and racist. I don't even understand why it is in public education. Another one, American Boys. I just looked at the back cover, and I've mentioned these books to Mr. Luther. I've mentioned these to Dr. Clapper before. It's again there's a very angled opinion in those books, and I don't understand why we're even offering them in public education, because it's an anti-authority type of a book. And they're going to, again, affect your culture. And you just spent a good amount of time talking about the vision and mission that we want in our school and the culture of respect that we want in our school. And yet we're allowing these types of books that have been brought up multiple times to exist. And we can't think that teaching these books to a select few isn't going to influence the rest of the culture of the school, on down to the lowest of the elementary kids. It permeates if we allow it to permeate in our buildings. And if we're teaching anti-authority messages and racist messages and sexual messages that are, again, I don't want to have to come in here and read the quotes of the books. I really don't. So I challenge you to take a deep dive into what is in your classrooms today and do something and take a stand and say, we're not going to have this at Baxter. And again, I truly appreciate Corey and John and Dr. Clapper, Mr. Luther, all of your time this fall. I appreciate you saying you would be interested in a dialogue so that we can remedy these issues.
I guess I've got a question for Wendy or Michael. If we adopt this or make it a policy, at what point, I mean, we have the teachers fill it out like this semester, what they're teaching, or so
Yes, so if.
that would begin immediately.
Right, yes, and if every time there's an expectation at the bottom that we updated when new material is added, deleted.
And then I guess I had a question on the committee that's established to,
Sure.
is that the same people all the time, or is it every instance you make a new committee, or I guess that wasn't quite clear on how.
Yeah, the docket, this doesn't give guidance on that. So I think that it can be different people every time.
It does talk a little like your grade level partner. So like if it was a 5th grade book complaint, you'd have like the other 5th grade teacher do it this year. But then if it was a 8th grade complaint, you'd have it. So there'd be some mixing there. And if it was an elementary complaint, you'd have, I think, does not say you'd have Jason or the other
principal. Yeah.
principals sit in. So there would be a mix that way. And then a little bit to what Christy was talking about, the governor, it hasn't been like made into law yet or anything, but they've talked about having schools put all your curriculum, at least a link to all your curriculum on your website, which Wendy's working on that anyway. So we don't have it ready yet. We were, if we have to have it ready sooner, we can, but our plan was to have it ready for next fall, that we could try and roll something out so parents can just take a look at it. It's
So
not
every
secret.
teacher, they'd have what their reading material is.
Yeah, and just, what your standards are and just have it available online. I don't know exactly how Wendy has it kind of laid out yet, but we were, like Christy said, we're kind of trying to be ahead of the curve on that. And then when the governor brought that up as something she might require, well, then obviously that changes it. If we have to, we'll drop what we're doing and get it done. But otherwise, we're kind of trying to be thoughtful about how do we best lay it out, and how to make it user friendly and all that kind of stuff, and have it available starting next fall. So we'll just kind of play that one by ear, depending on what laws pass.
So Wendy, you're the expert here. Like, obviously, we're not the only school that has these couple books that Kristen,
Correct.
and I haven't read these 2 books, so
There's more.
I
Unfortunately.
understand. But what do you say to a parent that brings a concern up like this? I mean, what's your thought? What's your
They
opinion?
have every right to bring up their concern. and
Right,
certainly
right.
do. That would follow the step one is, have you spoken to the teacher about that, and where did you end up with that? But certainly that's the school's obligation to provide alternative materials that still address the same level of rigor. But certainly, yes, if they have an objection to it, they can be provided alternative materials.
The alternative should be suitable. The alternative to the American Indian one is I don't remember exactly what it's called, but it's a story. The story is so-called something like that. It's a story. A boy called it. What is it? A boy called it. A boy called it. It's a story about abuse. So you have this very racist, very sexual in nature choice, or you have this very abusive in nature choice. And we know we have a foster care population in our school. We don't know kids' home environments. We don't know whether they're exposed to abuse or have been exposed to trauma. And yet these are the two choices, a racist, sexual, vulgar choice, or a very abusive story of reading a story of child abuse. Those are the two choices being offered in this class, in this school. Neither one, I think, are suitable. So I don't know, you have to play devil's advocate and say, do I want to read about a horrific child abuse scenario and hope that that student hasn't exposed themselves? Or do I want to listen to this vulgar, sexual, racist stuff? That's my two choices. I mean, seriously.
I guess my question is, where do we stop? Where's the line? Do we keep teaching about Civil War, slavery? I mean, is that geographic for children to learn about? I'm trying to figure out
That's the
where
founding
this
of our
tipping point is.
country.
Yeah, but
And-
there's also
And
stories
there's-
about slavery and
And we need to learn from our history. Age-appropriate content needs to be considered. So Corey, do you want me to read the quotes from the book tonight?
I don't need to hear it tonight.
We've actually had it sent to us, so.
So, I mean, would you want your kids, and would you want those ideologies and those lessons permeating in the school? Anti-authority, anti-police ideologies in the school? Would you want?
But we can learn from those things too, correct? We can say
It
that is not
depends
correct.
on how they're being taught and the angle they're being taught. And there is code in Iowa where you need to be explicitly not teaching certain ideologies. And we're surfing on the edge of chaos, depending on someone who's teaching in that classroom to not push over and causing this district to be liable
And how do you
to
know that?
Iowa code.
How do you know where?
Because the content of the books
Okay,
is surfing on the edge of Iowa code. So if you're surfing on the edge of Iowa code, I would challenge, does it belong in a public school system? You can go to a private school system. You can even choose to read it publicly on your own time. Does it belong in a state-funded public school?
Private schools are good though.
You're spending your money to send your kid to a private school. I'm not talking to a private school right now, am I?
I'm just asking, because eventually, with student voucher programs, your tax dollars are gonna go to those private schools.
I'm not talking to a private school right now.
I'm just saying, it's gonna affect all schools eventually.
If the code is written that way, then we have to follow the code of Iowa. I will follow Iowa law, and it is written that Iowa public schools need to follow these things. So if they have it written that private schools need to consider these things as well, then yes, I think the rules should be followed across all schools. But if you're receiving state government funding for this school right now, which you are, and you guys took an oath in November to uphold Iowa code and the Constitution of the United States. I was sitting in this room when you did. Then we need to uphold the Iowa code and the Constitution of the United States.
Okay, anything else? Back to these forms and that, what's the board's feeling on those?
I like this.
It kind of,
Direction.
right,
for
gives,
parents.
lays it out so people can follow through the
Right.
process. So Michael, you say that we don't have to,
No,
just based on the board policy that it references.
this is more just for your information, like this, and if you hated it, we can tweet it, but. Yeah, it's just for your information. This is what we're gonna use.
Good. Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you. It's good to
Thank
see
you.
everyone.
Thanks.
Email me if you have any questions or.
See you, Ron.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on. I don't think there was really anything on the building project update. I think conversation I had with Julie before our December meeting that was abbreviated anyway. She had one bill, I think, that she paid and she thought that was it. So I'd entertain a motion that remove the building project from future agendas.
I'll make the motion.
A motion, we have a second.
Second.
All in favor, aye. Pose same sign. Motion's approved. It's a long process, but
Yeah.
that's,
We'll be on to the next one. What else?
okay, we'll move on to the principals reports. Rob, you want to go first?
Absolutely. I just have a few things, one that really well into what Wendy was talking about, but a couple people and things I want to recognize that I think we are, I don't want to say cutting edge, but I know that this is where a lot of districts are headed. We have a senior that we've approved that seniors can take 7 instead of 8. When I first got here, for the longest time, our seniors were required to take all 8 classes. We now give them an open if they're on track to graduate. So we've hired a senior working during his open as a para with a 1-to-1 student who I actually talked to that parent today of the student, over the moon, how great it's going, mentoring, and such an easy fix when everybody's can't find parents and can't find people to work. Let's turn to our own 17, 18-year-olds that would do this. And we have some doing it for credit. If they're doing it for credit, there's no pay involved. But if they're truly just leaving their open and coming to work for us, I think it's just the tip of the iceberg of things that we could probably expand. And we have some great resources right here within our building. So as we're all trying to figure out who to cover classes and what we're doing with all of that, I just applaud being able to do that. And it's a success story on the first one. It's done really well.
What's, can I ask what the grade of
The senior and the other student is a
Other
6th
student.
grader. for
Okay.
us. Yeah, so senior to 6th grader.
And we like to think that this could potentially lead to, like, you know, if this student really likes this, maybe they'd consider education as a field that they never would have
Just
considered.
talked to that yesterday, I laughed at.
Oh.
Going in engineering.
Oh.
and staying in engineering, But
Okay,
that
well,
sure
good.
doesn't mean that we're not making a difference for that 6th grader. So.
Well, we'll keep reaching out.
Yeah,
We'll find
no,
one.
great point. It was so funny that I did talk to him thinking maybe that changed. No, not engineering. And another one that we're doing, so we don't teach graphic arts currently. It's another area that, you know, where your art teacher's interests and expertise lies. So we do a lot of drawing and pottery and things like that, not as much graphic arts, but we found someone in-house that can lead a student. Then we realized the student has more knowledge than anybody that we already have. So we bought an Adobe, the whole package for her. Computer, she's taking a class for credit, working actually right now through the athletic department with Zach and I, to be able to do all those awesome things you see online and promote your athletics and promote you know, the booster club events and all of that. So we're just getting started with that. This student has just blossomed. Maybe one I wouldn't say is an at-risk student, but one who couldn't find her niche and now does. And this last month has just been awesome, and coming to us each day and working on this. Can I show you this? And it's all magic to me. So what she's already doing is phenomenal, but we need that. And hopefully we can grow that to 3 or 4 kids having a sophomore. So we always have, it's not really a class, it's an independent class, but anybody who's in the real world with this graphic design and graphic arts, it's the way, you know, it's awesome. So again, growing our kids doing work that promotes our school and our kids. So want to recognize Lily Van Sice for breaking our scoring record this last week in girls basketball, on top of an undefeated girls basketball season right now, doing unprecedented things for our girls program. And she set our school scoring record, so wanted to get her in the board notes. It's funny, our PD right now at 612 is centering around those tiers. When you ask about tiers and multi-systems of support, you ask questions, I'll be honest, I'm learning as we go. And I know we have staff that are still trying to grasp what a tier 1 intervention within my classroom is. They do understand when I give an assessment, that kind of bar is if we can get 80% proficient. I know I'm probably not reteaching. I probably just need to work with those other 20%. But there's a lot of things that go on within that class that isn't just teach to the middle and teach to all, that we're working with kids. And if it's happening within that classroom, that's a tier 1 intervention to get those kids universal core over. So our PD right now in the last 2 Mondays, and now Wendy and Dennis are going to present on that this Monday. And we're really, I think, making some strides, because it's easy to talk to lingo until you really see what it is and how we can learn from each other within that tier 1 intervention. Our tier 2 intervention, you probably have heard bolt time and win time. That's predominantly what a tier 2 intervention, when you're taking students and working with them outside the classroom, and we have time in the day that we do that. That's typically a tier 2 intervention. What we're learning is, if I just drafted Debbie one-on-one for some math help, that's a tier 3, because anything that's one-on-one intensive like that, now we want to do smaller group, and we use that when bolt time for some catch-up time, we call reassessing, and kids that are missed out or missed school right now is a big one. So they're using that for other things too. But that's a really good thing in our educational system. There's a lot of things that are broken and a lot of things that we're in trouble about, but going in this direction where all means all, we're going to keep working to those kids until we can get them to meet standards. That's good anyway you can shake it out. I appreciate Dennis Vaughn too. He's our instructional coach. I think everybody knows that 612. He took a project on over the last couple months where he's been in multiple classrooms taking data on instructional strategies, think, pair, share, or higher order questioning. And there's a list of maybe almost 100 that he just coded what our teachers do in a given period. No names on it, and he's going to present once we get through the MTSS stuff about and strategies. And here's strategies that we use all the time. And these are our go-to ones. And teachers will probably say, what is that strategy? And, he can share ones that he didn't even see, or ones that we should be doing more of, which I think can also just increase, our teachers' toolboxes. But that's pretty exciting. I meet with Dennis occasionally on that. I think that's some really great data that we'll get back to our teachers as well. BizTown is a pretty cool thing. I don't know if Jason was going to talk about it this year. It's been a while since we've got to go down there. That's that junior achievement down 63rd and Grand. Awesome building. The kids go down. So it's Mr. Ady and Miss Buckland. And then Mr. Brummel on our end is putting this together. So our 5th and 6th grade will go down with some parent support and some teacher support and really run a town for a day, from banking to mayors to policies to radio station to food and beverage. And they all get assigned how a town would, in a day work, from banking and all of that. So that's, I've been down a few times. I'm not sure I'll make it Friday, but that's a really, really awesome real world learning experience. I say a lot, probably too often, so much of our teaching happens outside the 4 walls of the classrooms, whether it's co-curricular, extracurricular, wherever we can get, job on the field, on the job training. So we're doing that Friday, weather permitting, but we do have a backup. I know I'm hearing the next 2 mornings maybe a little chilly. And the last thing that kind of fit into what Wendy was talking about was that universal core meeting standards and meeting the benchmark. So I'm just going to share 6th, 7th, and 8th grade reading. We just did another assessment for all. We used FastBridge. It's a comprehension assessment that we use. Jason uses it all the way to kindergarten. So we use it all the way up. Only have to go through 6th, but we take it through 8th. Kristen uses that. And our numbers where we're at are just almost, they're really good. So in our middle school, our 6th grade had 96% of our kids meet core. One student was not at universal core. That student has an IEP, so they're getting tier 3 assistance every day through that IEP. But there's IEP kids that are meeting at grade level. 96% of our 6th graders. 100% of our 7th graders are at grade level right now off our winter assessment. And some of these, like, they go green and blue. You can meet benchmark, meet standards. And we have a quarter of our kids which are blue, which are high flyers in that 7th grade, and 33% of our 6th grade. So not just meeting core, but excelling. Our 8th grade, 80% met core, which is great. It is a high population of identified kids. Every single student that didn't meet that 80% mark has an IEP, and all of those students had growth at grade level from their fall to the winter. So from the reading standpoint of comprehension at 6 through 8, that's some awesome stuff. And that's, of course, I think my wife's awesome, but that's all of our teachers that are teaching vocab all the way across in and out of that reading curriculum. And I mean, that's a joint effort from PD to Dennis to Wendy to Kristen to those science and social studies teachers, that our kids are doing a really nice job in reading in middle schools. So, that's what I got.
Thank you, Rob. Jason?
I have a few things that overlap what Rob said. So we are currently actually right in the thick of our fast screening. So I don't have much data to share, if any, right now. So our teachers have been working through the early math and A math components of fast screening, and then some have started reading this week, and we'll try to wrap that up next week. So it is a screener. It tells us kind of the condition of where we're at that particular time. And so we set up a lot of our tier 2, which we talked about, our tier 2 win group interventions based off of some of these things. So we had a short or brief discussion, I guess, on our January 3rd meeting, just a little bit about our win time. And again, this screener, for example, fluency screener, right? You know, a lot of people would say, you know, it's just about how fast a kid reads, but it's more than that. It's being accurate as well. And so it you know, shows a lot of different things. And so we set up some of our interventions based on that, but we had a little bit deeper dive into how our tier 2 win time can be used based on a lot of our classroom assessments, where we're at, you know, with the specific standards and as they fall in our class, and how we're going to use that time to meet our students' needs. So always examining the tier 2 piece. We did, just to talk a little bit about January 3rd, you know, over the last few years with an ESSA designation, we've spent a lot of time examining our systems, right, through our SAMI process and doing things like that. And so we jumped pretty hard right back into that on January 3rd. You know, here's where we're at, and let's take a look at it. And we look specifically from some of the things that were in Wendy's presentation about our mission vision, you know, having a culture of collaboration. And so we talked a lot about, and we reviewed a lot of things about our collaborative process and our PLC groups and the conversations we were having. The one thing I just think is definitely worth sharing is through the SAMI, which was quite insightful. It's quite, you know, disheartening some ways, those of us that participated in the SAMI over the last couple of years. And then this process that we went through on Monday, the one thing I could say about my staff, my teachers, is that they attack that work with open eyes and a growth mindset. So, you know, they saw a few things that were lacking in our conversations. You know, we weren't really focusing on these particular areas, and they had some great conversations around them, and then set up goals for each of their teams. Each team worked on goals moving forward, how they want to incorporate some of those things in their collaboration time, and that they really need strengthening up. And they just, like I said, they just attacked it with a great focus and a mindset of school improvement. So I was really happy with that discussion. You know, you kind of are preparing that presentation and wanted to have that discussion over break, and you're not quite sure how it's going to go and how it's going to be received. And they received it with great intentions and with, you know, what I think true professionalism, kind of moving forward and trying to live up to the mission, the vision, and the commitments that we've set for ourselves. It actually was a little bit what I would consider, it felt good to be doing that work, right? That's, I mean, you know, when you're doing that work, you're like, okay, we're doing what we need to be doing. And I felt that the conversations we had were just really solid that way. Rob mentioned JA BizTown. I've never been to JA BizTown. I don't know, since I've been principal, maybe that we've even had JA BizTown. So I'm hoping for that opportunity. I know our 5th grade teachers and students are really excited about that. So you're fine. They're really excited about that. And so Rob did a great job of explaining it. So I'll kind of leave it at that. But I'm hoping maybe to be able to sneak down on Friday and check it out myself and be a part of that. But I know the 5th graders have a lot of anticipation in that opportunity that they're going to get. A couple of real generic things. It's cold outside. It's wintertime. We're trying to keep kids active. Some inside recess. It's not always ideal, right, for several reasons. One is we want kids to be active, and so doing hallway activities, games, sitting, you know, playing board type games, card games, whatever, the educational games, things on their computers that their teachers have set up for them to use during that time aren't really what we want. So then we try to put them in the gym. when you have 120 kids running around the gym at one time, there's always bumps and bruises and running into each other, and it's just some chaos, but we're trying our best. But I do appreciate our custodial staff. They've gotten out there and pushed the snow off the basketball court, pushed the snow off the walking path, so our kids are at least able to get out and move around. They're not just, stuck in a foot of snow up to their knees, just standing there. So there are some places where they can play some of the games they like to play, as well as, nothing better than a big mound of snow, right? Just to like slide down and do all sorts of crazy things with. So the last thing I have is Dr. Clapper and Rob and I had the opportunity to go out and visit Larry and Shirley Ladd. And the Ladds were gracious hosts, and they've shared a lot of great things with us. One thing they shared was an opportunity with the Des Moines Opera. And so I've kind of finalized some plans. I haven't even really talked to the staff yet about this opportunity, but we're going to bring the Des Moines Opera to the school for a workshop and then a mini opera. The workshop will be geared towards 3rd and 4th grade students. They have kind of a specific number, what they feel is manageable for them to present. It's a half-hour workshop. And then after that, they put on a mini opera. They've invited the whole school down for that. So K-12, whoever wants to come, but for sure the elementary. And it's really interesting. I think there's a lot of art involved with that, music involved with that they'll share in the workshop with kids, sets and all the different things that go into it, costumes and things. And then to see the opera will be a great opportunity. So we're going to open that up to some kids. I really, truly think it's going to be choice. I think we have a lot of kids music wise that would be excited to at least see that and be a part of that. And then I do want to give kudos to Larry and Shirley in that they footed the bill to have the opera come and do this for us, which was very nice. The generous donation to have that come. So I think that's pretty cool to be able to offer that to our students, and I'm looking forward to it. And I talked to to Mr. Archer the other day, and Mr. Archer is excited about having that opportunity. I talked to Ms. Carter, and she was excited about it. So just some excitement to have the arts come in that way for our students. So,
When is that?
so we're due. I think I confirmed the third day. I sent her 2 dates, and I'm holding April 15th. It's an afternoon. I know that Rob is ISAS testing that week, but by Friday afternoon you won't be. So I think it may even be like a somewhat just like, oh, we're done with ISAS, let's celebrate with the opera. And so it's so it'll be good. Friday afternoon they'll come in around just after the lunch hour. Like I said, it's a half-hour workshop, and then they get things set up, and then probably, I think it's like a 45-minute question and answer before they perform their part of the opera, so for the student body or whoever's there, and then they'll perform a 45-minute opera and then move on, I guess.
That's the for sure date.
April 15th.
Okay.
I'm 100% sure that's what, as I thought about it, I was like that Friday or the 28th are my two options, 28th, whatever that last Friday is in April, and I'm pretty sure, I'm 100% sure we land on the 15th.
Great.
Because I was worried about Rob, and I'm like, I think he's going to be good.
We could come if you.
Absolutely come. And we actually, the workshop set up for 3rd through 4th grade kids is what the age group they think it's targeted to. But I talked to her today and asked her if, I think it'd be great if some of our high school music, middle school music students and art students had the opportunity to participate in that. And she said, the more the merrier, bring them in. And it may be geared towards an elementary as far as the audience, but I think they'll still pick up on some stuff. And as she said, then maybe one of your high school students might pursue, opera as an interest and, be a part of our troupe someday. So I was like, you never know. So,
Okay. Thank you.
yeah.
If it changes. let us know.
Yes, April 15th. Barring weather, April
Thank you, Jason.
15th. Okay, thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to our next item on the agenda, and that's our social media board policy.
Yeah, so I reached out to the IASB and asked for some help with some board policies about social media, because we've had a few incidents and we do have some social media policies in place already, but they didn't quite fit the situation we were in. And so their lawyers sent me these 2 policies and said, these 2 will fit exactly what you're talking about. And so really what these do is they just prevent people from using our facilities to promote their own personal what they call it, like external websites, like things like Facebook or TikTok or Instagram. So we're not saying our teachers can't have Facebook or Instagram or TikTok. We're just saying you can't use our building to promote, you can use it to promote your math Facebook page, but not your, like I could use it to promote my Michael and Clapper Facebook page using our building to promote that, because if you get enough followers or whatever, they get money for it. And some of the things, even though it's their own personal page, it could reflect in a way that we don't as a school support. So we don't want our building and our likeness to be used on their personal social media pages. So these two policies address that from IASB. So this would just be considered, but you can just look at them, take a look. And I don't know if this would be the first reading and then the second reading. If you have questions, we can talk about it next month. But I mean, and we're not saying you can't use your computer at home or anything like that to check your email. That's fine. Like, we're not trying to police everything. It's just a couple specific incidences that we want to prevent from happening.
I think it is important to, I mean, one thing that jumped out to me is employees cannot have an expectation of privacy in the use of school district's computers.
Right.
So really, anything that students or staff or us, even anybody using school computers, it's all for grabs, basically.
Right.
So I think that's important really for all people to be aware of
For
in
sure.
the district.
For sure.
Are like bigger schools, are they having similar policies for their students?
I don't know. I guess I could ask about that. I just
I'm
don't
just
know.
curious.
I don't know.
Maybe something to look at too is how these kind of align or need to align with what students sign as far as the technology. Well, it's one of the forms that enrollment that we have to,
Handbook.
yeah.
And then maybe address our student handbook to
Right.
reflect these.
Right. We wouldn't want to have any gaps in there.
Questions or comments? Mike says, I think these are pretty well written. Address the needs that we have right now. So we'll consider this the first reading. Be on, excuse me, the agenda, next month's meeting. Okay, our next item is the Baxter Joint City School Work Session.
So I reached out to Brian DeYoung, our new mayor, and I asked him if the city was still interested in doing the joint city school meeting, and they were. And we just kind of threw out a couple of dates, and I just wanted you guys to check your calendars and see if either April 6th or April 27th would work. Those both worked, I believe those both worked for Brian and the city council. And it's our turn to host it this year. So for those of you like in the audience, we go back and forth every year. 1 year the school hosts it, and then the next year we have it at City Hall, and then we have it at school, and then at City Hall. So it's our turn this year to host it here at school.
It'd be a Wednesday.
Yeah.
Either one works.
Same.
Yeah, I think
Six,
6
okay.
is better for me.
Oh, it's really good stuff planting, isn't it? Okay. I didn't think about that. I should have. Okay, I will make sure, I'll double check with Brian tomorrow and see if April 6th would work. So I'll let you know as soon as I hear. So that was really just for information, trying to information gather.
Next item is our annual board work session.
And I just put the corresponding dates from last year, so it'd be February 28th and March 2nd. So if those are fine with everybody, I just leave them. And it seems like the first night we talk a lot more about data, and then the second night we just talk a lot more about budgets and that kind of thing. And I attached the agenda. I haven't done any adjustments. It's actually just last year's agenda. We haven't started anything, so it'll look very familiar. But if there's anything that you're like, oh, I really want you to add something, let me know. Or if you're like, that's just kind of a waste of our time, I don't think we need to talk about that one anymore. Just let me know. But I just attached it so you'd have it to take a look at.
Open enrollment.
So we have a form for, from Nick and Sarah Fiji for their daughter Bryn to start kindergarten with us next year. She comes from Newton, I believe. Yeah, Newton District. She already attends our preschool. She's a doll. Saw her in the office the other day. She's cute. She's a cutie pie.
We have a motion to approve the open enrollment application as presented.
So moved.
A motion, do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, aye. Those same sign.
Debbie?
Yes.
Motion's approved for the open enrollment. Okay, we move down to personnel.
Just got a letter today from Renee Aker is resigning as drill team coach or dance team coach. And then as far as early retirement, I didn't get anybody to get back to me on that. So guess everybody's sticking around.
We have a motion to accept the resignation of Renee Aker as our dance team coach.
So moved.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, aye. Those same sign. Resignations approved as presented. Down to facilities, grounds, and transportation.
This is just kind of just an FYI update. Got Pam getting some quotes for flooring for the multi-purpose room. She's kind of working with Rob and Mr. Hasselbrink on that to get some quotes. And once wrestling season's over, then we'll be able to get some flooring in there so we can use it for multiple things since it's a multi-purpose building. And then she's also going to get some quotes for some much needed repairs on the press box. Sounds like the windows are tipped in a little bit, and so and Rob can probably speak more of this, but the water runs in and the floor is basically rotten, like a wrong step and you could go through it. I don't know if that's true, but I've heard from.
I'm kind of a big guy, I'd be sitting up there.
Yeah.
Over top that hole.
So we're a little nervous
I
about
met
that.
with the builder
Oh.
off, just discussing who's been up there and looked at it, and I'm worried we're gonna have sticker shock.
So just have that on your radar.
I think it's a pretty big issue.
Yeah.
That replacing all windows for sure, and then flooring on third and fourth, or third and second floor, some will, there's some damage.
Would we need to do that before track?
Or we can't use it. My suggestion, I don't know, I feel comfortable. Those track coaches coming up and somebody goes through the floor.
Yeah.
So yeah, it will need to be right to the top. Now, the windows may not need to be
Yeah.
replaced. I mean, how, you wouldn't want to replace the floor and then the windows are still,
Yeah.
but.
Yeah.
The floors.
When's our first track meet? Home. April. So off the track. No kidding.
Is that something, I know next meeting we'd have our facilities tour.
That would be a
Could
great
we
idea.
look at that?
Meet out
I
there
would
first.
see
Meet
a
out there.
good visual of it
Yeah, it's good.
when it comes in.
And we'll meet out there to begin. Okay. The next item is superintendent's report.
Okay, I will try and keep this short and sweet. Got next year's calendar just about ready to roll. Shared it with the staff yesterday, 2 days ago. And kind of I took their feedback from just suggestions. And then Jason, Rob, and I worked on putting it together. And then I shared the kind of draft of the final project with the staff. And then they looked over and gave me a couple points, like, oh, you forgot a date here or whatever. And just a few little bits and pieces. And so we're trying to get it to the final state. So it's basically ready to bring to the next board meeting and so you can approve it. But I mean, we feel it's very, very similar to this year's calendar. It's hardly any different. means we can't start school before August 23rd. So we start on the 23rd, it's a Tuesday. I believe the last day of school is the Thursday before Memorial Day, and then teachers get out the Friday. Or teachers have a work day Friday, so we're done before Memorial Day. Spring break's the same time as it is now. So it really is just pretty much corresponding dates.
Couple snow days built into that.
Yeah, we go 180 days, but I think we've got about 6.5 days worth of extra hours. So I like to still go with the 180. I mean, that's kind of what we're all used to, but then having those extra minutes in there still gives us that cushion. So like if you have to do a delay or you have to cancel, I mean, the staff still has to make up the days because it's part of their contract, but the kids, we have quite a bit of flexibility in. Some of this is from December. It feels like so long ago that I worked on a desk audit, but we got the desk audit submitted. We just wait for them to tell us if it's okay or if there's things we have to fix. That replaced the old site visit. Now we just do a desk audit every year, but they ask for less things each year. So I'm sure over the course of 5 years, stuff. But and then rolling into January, I met with some. Right after Christmas break, all the Jasper County superintendents met in Newton, and we met with the chief of police in Newton and some sheriff's office people and the Jasper County emergency management people. And what we talked about was just improved communication between all these entities and how do we work together better? Because, you know, in our situation where we have just a part-time police officer who's, you know, was on leave for a while because they had a new baby, which is totally fine, but like we were left without a police officer. And so just talking through some of that stuff and what it's led to is some really great conversation. And actually now we're going to meet at least bi-monthly or like every 2 months. So, but next month we're meeting again just because we had so much unfinished business that we just wanted to keep the conversation going. So we're going to meet again in February and then maybe take March off and then meet in April and just keep it continuous. So, you know, we can do some learning with it. You know, they can help us learn things like, you know, what are some things we want to be looking at as far as at-risk kids that, you know, police come at from a different angle than educators and how, you know, what are things that we see that they might not see. So just really opening that communication, and it was a wonderful meeting. I left feeling really positive about it. So, and just even getting to know more of the officers is wonderful. So that was really good. Looking at some potential operational sharing with some other districts, just try and even just some sharing positions, just to do, you know, with operational sharing, if you can get those positions for basically for free, and you can get the service that can help protect our general fund. It's a win-win. So I've got some feelers out. There's a couple of us in conversation about, you know, what are some things we could share, or how can we be more efficient. So I don't really have anything hard and fast yet, but we're working on some things. And then, you know, Jason talked about Larry and Shirley Ladd, and we did have just a wonderful afternoon with them. It was kind of a delight. They're very eclectic, but they were a hoot. But anyway, Larry explained, and he said it's public. He'd love to come and share with the board sometime. Housing development he's working on, and he says they're breaking ground in April. They've already sold 4 lots, and it's out by Ashton Park, out near like Jerry and Carrie Routliff, and then Larry and Shirley live right next to Jerry and Carrie and the park. And so it was, 100 houses or
40 in that first one,
40
80
and then-
in the other one.
yeah, it's like 2
over-
development.
So we're like 20 years though, right? 10
Yeah, I
20.
mean, it's the plans are very elaborate. It looks super cool, but it's a different kind of development, not just a regular housing development. It was called like a conservation community. So, and I'm probably butchering this, so I probably shouldn't even say it while we're being recorded, but it was something about like, if you were going to buy a lot, your lot might be 2-acre lot, but your house and the part you have to mow is only maybe 1/4 of an acre. And then you all share a whole bunch of the rest of the lot. And so you have these beautiful, you know, prairie lands and stuff, but you don't have to mow it, and you can all, it's kind of, I don't know, it sounded really cool, but I'll just be dying to see it like come together. So anyway, so he just wanted to like tell us all about it. And then we also watched some opera with him. He got us to get to have the opera come here. They're big opera people. And so it was a delightful afternoon, but we had a great time. So I'm just excited to see how that all pans out. And he told us to plan on, what did he say, 100 new kids. So I don't know if we'll all still be here in these roles by the time these 100 kids get here, but hopefully we will. So anyway, then the rest is just some days. We just talked about those. We'll do the facility tour. And I know that's like, you guys all have jobs. So I don't know how early you can get there. Or Debbie, if you can skip meet out the track and we can just meet here.
I'll work on it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so we can kind of talk through the timing of that one. And then remember the March board meeting is moved to March 9th because of spring break, and then the April is moved to the 13th because it has to be done before the budget. You have to certify your budget by April 15th. That's not all I've got.
Any questions for Michael? We got everything covered. So we have a motion to adjourn. Motion, we have a second.
Second.
All in favor, aye. Those same sign. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everyone.